Philosophies Revived.
Have you ever paused to wonder why the people who seem to carry the deepest wisdom often speak the least? It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? We live in a world that celebrates loud voices, where making your opinions known is often mistaken for intelligence or power. And yet, there's a quiet, unassuming group of individuals who seem to defy this norm, the ones who sit back, observe, and choose their words sparingly. Why? What do they know that the rest of us don't? Schopenhauer, one of history's most profound philosophers, built an entire philosophy around this idea. He believed that silence isn't a sign of weakness, ignorance, or disinterest. On the contrary, silence is an intentional act of strength, wisdom, and self-control. It's a superpower hidden in plain sight, often misunderstood, in a society obsessed with noise. Imagine a crowded room where everyone is talking at once, each voice louder than the other, trying to prove a point. And then in one corner, someone sits silently, observing the chaos, understanding what others miss, and absorbing the energy of the room. Who, in that scenario, truly has control? Who is the one with the real power? This isn't just a philosophical musing, it's a strategy, a way of life that Schopenhauer believed could lead to profound clarity, influence, and peace. The secret to why the wisest among us stay silent lies not in their lack of thoughts, but in their mastery of restraint. They know the power of silence isn't just in the absence of sound, but in the presence of purpose. So, are you ready to explore this hidden strength? To uncover why silence could be the most powerful tool you've been overlooking all along? Let's dive into Schopenhauer's mind and see what we can learn. The noise around us. Let's take a moment to imagine the world we live in: constant chatter, endless debates, and a relentless need to express ourselves. Social media, TV conversations at work or with friends. It's all a cacophony of voices trying to be heard. But in this sea of noise, have you ever noticed how the loudest voices aren't always the wisest? Imagine walking into a room full of people engaged in heated arguments, their voices rising with every exchange. It's chaotic, isn't it? Now picture someone sitting quietly in the corner, their presence commanding attention without uttering a single word. It's as if their silence speaks volumes, a calm amidst the storm. This isn't just a scenario, it's a metaphor for life. Most of us are so busy trying to make our voices heard that we forget the power of observation. Schopenhauer believed that wisdom isn't found in shouting your opinions, but in understanding when and why to speak or not to speak. In a noisy room, the silent observer often knows more than those who dominate the conversation. Why? Because they listen. They notice things others overlook. They see beyond the surface. Silence, in this sense, becomes a tool for clarity. While others expend energy trying to be right or win arguments, the silent individual absorbs, reflects, and learns. They choose not to engage in the chaos because they know not every battle needs to be fought. This is where the power of silence lies, not in retreat, but in strategic restraint. So, the next time you find yourself in a noisy conversation, pause and ask yourself, is it more powerful to add to the noise or to stand apart in quiet observation? Schopenhauer would argue for the latter. Let's explore why. Why words fail us. Have you ever felt like no matter how carefully you craft your words, they sometimes fall flat? You explain, argue, or share something meaningful, but the person on the other end just doesn't get it. Why does this happen? Schopenhauer had a theory. Most people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. And in this dynamic, words often fail us. Think about your last argument or heated discussion. Were you truly being heard? Or was the other person just waiting for their chance to jump in and counter your point? This isn't communication, it's competition. And in a world where everyone is so focused on being heard, real understanding often gets lost. Schopenhauer believed that silence cuts through this noise. When you choose silence over words, you step out of this cycle. Silence forces others to confront their own thoughts instead of reacting to yours. It creates a space for reflection, something words rarely achieve in the heat of a conversation. But there's another layer to this. Words, as powerful as they are inherently limited. They're subject to interpretation, bias, and even manipulation. Silence, on the other hand, is pure. It's unambiguous. It doesn't demand to be understood. It simply exists. This is why silence often carries more weight than speech. So, the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself or prove a point, pause. Ask yourself, will my words add clarity, or will they add noise? Sometimes saying nothing at all is the most eloquent response you can give. Schopenhauer's insight reminds us that wisdom often lies not in what we say, but in what we choose not to say. Silence as an action. Silence is often misunderstood as a lack of action, a kind of passive disengagement. But what if I told you that silence is one of the most active things you can do? Schopenhauer believed that silence is not the absence of action, but a deliberate and powerful choice. When we choose silence, we are choosing to engage with the world on a deeper level, one that goes beyond words. Think about it. How much of what we say in a day is truly necessary? How much of it adds value, and how much of it is just filler? In our rush to speak, we often miss the subtle cues, the hidden layers of meaning in our conversations and surroundings. Silence gives us the space to truly listen and observe. It's like tuning into a frequency that most people don't even know exists. Imagine you're in a meeting and everyone is talking over one another, trying to assert their opinions. Now picture yourself sitting quietly, absorbing the discussion without feeling the need to jump in. What happens? You start noticing things others don't: the body language of your colleagues, the gaps in their arguments, the underlying emotions driving the conversation. In that moment, your silence becomes your superpower. You're not passive, you're actively engaging in a way that most people can't. Schopenhauer saw silence as a form of action because it allows us to process the world more effectively. It's about listening not just to others, but to yourself, to your intuition, to the unspoken truths around you. Silence is an invitation to go deeper, to see beyond the surface. And in a world that values noise, choosing silence is one of the boldest actions you can take. So, the next time you're tempted to fill the silence, remember this: sometimes the most powerful action is to do nothing at all, to simply be present and let the world unfold. Silence as a shield. Have you ever regretted saying something in the heat of the moment? Maybe it was an emotional outburst or a hasty opinion that came back to bite you later. Schopenhauer understood this all too well. He believed that silence is not just a virtue, it's a shield, a form of self-protection in a world that's quick to judge and criticize. Every time we speak, we reveal something about ourselves. Our words expose our thoughts, intentions, and even vulnerabilities. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does make us susceptible. Words, once spoken, can be misinterpreted, twisted, or used against us. Silence, however, is unassailable. It keeps our intentions private, our emotions safeguarded, and our power intact. Imagine a scenario where someone criticizes you unfairly. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to set the record straight. But what if you didn't? What if you simply stayed silent? In doing so, you deny the critic the satisfaction of a reaction. You retain your dignity and your control over the situation. Silence, in this case, becomes your armor. But it's not just about protecting yourself from others. Silence also protects you from yourself. How many times have you spoken out of anger, fear, or frustration, only to regret it later? Silence gives you the space to pause, to reflect, and to choose your response wisely. It's a form of self-discipline that prevents impulsive mistakes. Schopenhauer's insight reminds us that silence is a choice, one that empowers us to navigate life with greater control and clarity. So, the next time you feel the urge to react, consider the strength in holding back. Silence doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're wise. The self-control of silence. Let's be real, staying silent is hard. It takes effort, discipline, and a level of self-awareness that most of us struggle to maintain. Schopenhauer believed that mastering silence is, in essence, mastering oneself. Why? Because silence is an act of self-control. It's the ability to resist the impulse to speak, to react, to let your emotions dictate your actions. Think about the last time you said something you regretted. Maybe it was a heated argument where your emotions got the best of you. Or maybe it was a casual conversation where you overshared and felt exposed afterward. Words once spoken can't be unsaid. They linger, sometimes in ways we don't anticipate. Silence, on the other hand, is a safeguard. It gives us the time and space to think before we act. But here's the thing, silence isn't about suppressing your emotions or bottling up your thoughts. It's about channeling them in a way that serves you. When you stay silent, you're not ignoring your feelings. You're giving yourself the opportunity to process them. You're choosing clarity over chaos, wisdom over impulse. Schopenhauer understood that silence is a form of power because it allows us to act with intention rather than reaction. It's a pause button in a world that moves too fast. And in that pause, we find the strength to make better choices. So, how do we practice this self-control? Start small. The next time you're in a conversation and feel the urge to interrupt, resist. Listen instead. The next time you're angry, take a moment before you speak. You'll be amazed at how much more control you feel over your emotions and your interactions. In the end, silence isn't just about holding your tongue. It's about holding your ground. And that's a strength worth cultivating. The gravity of silence. Here's something most people don't realize. Silence isn't empty, it's full of potential, meaning, and power. Schopenhauer believed that silence has a weight to it, a kind of gravity that pulls people in and forces them to pay attention. Why? Because silence is rare. In a world filled with noise, it stands out. Imagine this. You're in a heated argument, and instead of firing back, the other person responds with silence. What happens? That silence feels heavy, doesn't it? It makes you pause, reflect, and maybe even question your own words. This is the gravity of silence. It shifts the focus and creates a space for introspection. But silence isn't just about its effect on others. It's also about the space it creates within ourselves. When we stop talking, we start listening, not just to others, but to our own thoughts, our intuition, and the world around us. In silence, we can see things more clearly, free from the distractions of noise and chatter. Schopenhauer saw silence as a form of presence. It's not about disengaging, it's about engaging on a deeper level. When you're silent, you're not absent, you're fully present. You're observing, absorbing, and understanding in a way that words can't capture. So, the next time you feel the need to fill the silence, pause. Embrace the quiet. Let it do the work for you. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence and self-awareness. Have you ever experienced the kind of silence that makes you uncomfortable? The kind where there's no background noise, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. It's not always easy to sit in that kind of stillness, is it? Schopenhauer believed that this is precisely where self-awareness begins, when we stop running from silence and instead embrace it. In a world where we're constantly surrounded by noise, phones buzzing, TVs blaring, conversations humming, it's easy to lose touch with ourselves. We spend so much time reacting to external stimuli that we rarely stop to listen to what's going on inside. Silence changes that. It creates a space where we can tune into our thoughts, our feelings, and the subtle cues our intuition is trying to send us. Schopenhauer argued that silence is the gateway to clarity. In the absence of noise, we can finally confront the truths we've been avoiding. It's not always pleasant. Silence often brings up insecurities, fears, and doubts that we'd rather ignore. But facing these truths is the first step toward growth. Silence forces us to strip away distractions and see ourselves as we really are. Think about the last time you sat in complete silence. Were you scrolling through your phone, filling the void with music, or letting your mind wander aimlessly? If so, you're not alone. It's how most of us cope with silence. But what if, instead, you use that time to reflect? To ask yourself questions like, what am I feeling right now? What do I want? What's truly important to me? Schopenhauer believed that silence isn't just a break from the noise. It's a chance to recalibrate, to reconnect with yourself on a deeper level. And in that connection lies the wisdom to navigate life's chaos with clarity and purpose. Why is silence so uncomfortable for most of us? Why do we instinctively reach for our phones, turn on the TV, or fill the air with small talk the moment the quiet creeps in? Schopenhauer believed that silence makes us uncomfortable because it forces us to confront what we'd rather avoid: our own thoughts, fears, and insecurities. Think about it. When you're surrounded by noise, you don't have to think about the things that scare you. You don't have to face that nagging doubt about your career, that unresolved conflict in your relationship, or that fear of failure that's been gnawing at you. Noise is a distraction, a way to escape. Silence, on the other hand, doesn't let you off the hook. But here's the thing: the discomfort of silence isn't something to run from. It's something to embrace. Schopenhauer believed that true wisdom and growth come from sitting with that discomfort, from letting it teach you something about yourself. Silence is like a mirror, reflecting back the parts of you that you'd rather not see. And while that can be challenging, it's also incredibly liberating. Think about the most transformative moments in your life. Were they noisy and chaotic, or were they quiet and introspective? Maybe it was a walk in nature, a moment of solitude, or a deep meditation. These are the moments when we gain clarity, when we hear the whispers of our intuition, when we reconnect with what truly matters. Silence requires courage. It's not easy to sit in stillness and face yourself, but Schopenhauer reminds us that the rewards of silence far outweigh the discomfort. In the quiet, you'll find not just the answers you've been seeking, but also the strength to face them. The silent revolution. Silence isn't just about self-awareness or protection, it's also a powerful strategy for influence. Schopenhauer believed that silence, when used intentionally, can reshape relationships, steer conversations, and even alter the course of events. In fact, silence often speaks louder than words, especially when it's deliberate. Think about the last time someone paused before responding to you. Didn't that moment of silence feel charged? Didn't it make you wonder what they were thinking? That's the power of silence. It creates a space that others feel compelled to fill. And in that space, dynamics shift. When you choose to stay silent, you change the rules of engagement. You're no longer reacting impulsively or trying to dominate the conversation. Instead, you're observing, absorbing, and waiting for the right moment to act. This kind of restraint can be incredibly disarming to others. It forces them to reflect, to second-guess their assumptions, and to reveal more of themselves than they intended. But silence isn't just about influence, it's also about presence. When you're silent, you're not absent. On the contrary, your silence draws attention. It commands respect. It makes people listen more closely when you finally do speak. Schopenhauer believed that silence is a form of power that doesn't rely on aggression or dominance. It's about subtlety, patience, and wisdom. It's about knowing that you don't have to shout to be heard, and you don't have to argue to make a point. Sometimes, silence is the most eloquent response. So, the next time you find yourself in a heated conversation or a tense situation, resist the urge to react immediately. Embrace the silence. Let it do the work for you. Because, as Schopenhauer knew, Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's a revolutionary act of control and influence. The echo of silence. What makes silence so powerful is that it lingers. Unlike words, which are fleeting and easily forgotten, silence leaves an impression. It stays with people, echoing in their minds long after the moment has passed. Schopenhauer believed that this is the ultimate power of silence. It transcends time and space. Think about the most profound moments of your life. Were they filled with words, or were they marked by silence? Maybe it was the stillness of watching a sunrise, the quiet comfort of sitting with a loved one, or the reflective pause before making a life-altering decision. These moments stay with us not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. Silence gives them weight, meaning, and significance. But silence doesn't just impact the present, it shapes the future. When you choose silence, you create space for growth, reflection, and deeper understanding. You allow others to interpret your silence in their own way, making it a powerful tool for connection and influence. It's why moments of silence often feel so intense. They force us to confront ourselves, our emotions, and our truths. Schopenhauer saw silence as a kind of legacy. Words may be forgotten, but silence endures. It leaves an echo that resonates far beyond the moment. It's a reminder that sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is say nothing at all. So, as we reflect on Schopenhauer's philosophy, consider this. How will you use silence in your life? Will it be a shield, a tool, a form of self-awareness, or will it be your legacy, shaping the world long after you're gone? The choice is yours. Silence, when used wisely, isn't just a pause. It's a statement, a presence, an echo that never fades. Using silence in your life. Now that we've uncovered the power of silence, let's make it personal. How can you use silence in your daily life, not just as an abstract concept, but as a practical tool? Schopenhauer didn't see silence as something reserved for philosophers or sages. He believed it's a skill anyone can master, a strategy that can transform relationships, decisions, and even your inner peace. Start with your conversations. How often do you feel the need to fill every pause, to jump in with your opinion or explain yourself in detail? What if, instead, you embrace the pause? The next time someone speaks to you, resist the urge to respond immediately. Let the silence linger. Observe their body language, tone, and the emotion behind their words. You'll start to notice things you missed before, things that words can't always express. Silence can also be a powerful tool in conflict. Imagine you're in an argument, and instead of defending yourself or escalating the tension, you stay quiet. What happens? The dynamic shifts. Your silence forces the other person to reconsider their approach, to reflect on their own words and actions. It disarms them in a way that no clever comeback ever could. Silence, in this sense, becomes your shield and your weapon. But silence isn't just about how you interact with others. It's also about how you interact with yourself. Make time each day to sit in silence. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. Your mind will wander, and the urge to reach for your phone will be strong, but if you stick with it, you'll start to notice a shift. You'll feel calmer, more focused, and more connected to yourself. Schopenhauer understood that silence is a discipline. It's not easy, but it's worth it. In a world that's constantly shouting for attention, the ability to remain quiet, deliberate, and intentional is a rare and powerful gift. So ask yourself, how can you bring more silence into your life? How can you use it to listen better, to think more clearly, and to act with purpose? The answers might surprise you. As we bring this journey through Schopenhauer's philosophy to a close, let's take a step back and reflect. Silence, as we've explored, isn't just the absence of noise. It's a presence, a force, a deliberate choice that carries with it the potential to transform not just our interactions with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. Schopenhauer's secret was simple yet profound. The wisest among us stay silent because they understand its power. They know that words, while useful, are often limited. They can be misunderstood, misused, or forgotten. Silence, on the other hand, endures. It creates a space for meaning to emerge, for reflection to happen, for growth to occur. But silence isn't easy. It requires courage to sit with discomfort, discipline to resist the urge to react, and wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay quiet. It's not about retreating from the world, it's about engaging with it on a deeper level. It's about listening, observing, and acting with intention. So, what does silence mean for you? Is it a shield to protect yourself from the chaos of the world? A mirror to reflect your inner truths? A strategy to influence and connect with others? Or is it a legacy, a way to leave an impact that lingers long after your words have faded? Schopenhauer believed that silence is a gift we give to ourselves and to the world. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. So, as you move forward, I challenge you to embrace silence. Use it to listen more, to react less, and to live with greater clarity and purpose. Because in the end, silence isn't just a tool, it's a way of being. And in a world obsessed with noise, choosing silence might just be the wisest thing you ever do.